On this episode of the program, we speak to Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olusegun Fabumi, about the need to improve the process for the screening of ministerial nominees, agenda setting for the incoming Attorney General of the Federation, and other key judiciary reforms the Tinubu administration can undertake. Also showing on the program, other senior lawyers speak about necessary key judiciary reforms, plus a recap of the top trending legal stories in the news. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shoyeli. My guest, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olusegun Fabumi, has diverse legal practice background, having worked at reputable chambers of senior advocates of Nigeria like legal giants, educationists and philanthropists, Chief Afe Babalola and B.O.B. Benson, among others, before proceeding to establish his law firm. He was conferred with the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in 2020. In this interview, I started by asking his views on the seeming lack of a clear-cut legal framework for the screening and confirmation of ministers and commissioner nominees by the legislators, and what he thinks can be done to improve the process.
Well, I believe the law that is bringing that position in place should be further looked into and amended, because it is only the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly that have the rights, to screen, and they put in place the procedure and the way and manner the nominees will be screened. So, and since it is their own job to do so, there's little influence. But if the law is there stating categorically what and what to be done, then I think that will guide them, and that will make people to also be happy and point out when they are erring in what they are doing.
Now, the names that we've seen on the list of ministerial nominees, does that cabinet inspire you?
Well, personally, to me, as a person, I think I'm satisfied to a larger extent. We're in an era where you have opposition parties, and people will come out to criticize. But, if you have 100% of judgment of people, and you have, let's even say 70% or 80%, you have passed. You can look at the caliber of people that are there, and you can see their qualifications. Well, one or two that we had on, the news during the screening that have issues, that they are being questioned, one or two. But the other people, you have professors, you have engineers. In fact, I'm so impressed, you have people who have 4 master's degree and all that. But the issue here is that we're also still in a democracy. And this is a political party in which people work very hard, to bring the government into place. And you cannot jettison those people.
Yes. We also have people that are being recycled. Are they the only ones in the country?
Well, they are not the only one, but how many people are ready to come out and to go and fight and be part of them? We have a kind of nonchalant attitude. I will use myself as an example. I'm here as an SCN sitting down, doing my work. Why am I not in politics? There are several people who are not in politics. People will give and start arguing, no, they don't want me there. No. There was a man in the National Assembly when that Professor Pate was there. And he said it was Professor Pate that told him, go and join politics. He said he never had the mind at all. And he did. He said he was a commissioner. From there, he's now in the National Assembly as a senator. So we need all of us to participate actively. And there's a new movement in the country. So if we are ready to change the scenario and the settings, we should all participate. But as regards old age, I have a different view entirely. Look at, I've read several times, the more you age, the more you have the experience to contribute to the society. The issue will be whether your health is able to accommodate that work or strenuous work you want to accept. Can it be able to do the job, in an active manner? If that is satisfied. And then you look at the areas of corruption and all those things. Because most of the complaints about being recycled is the people believe that, look, these people that have eaten so much, and they are now coming back. Give the youth a chance. But look, let me tell you, all over the world, like even in the US, the other client, look at Joe Biden. Look at it. Look at even Trump. Trump is still saying he wants to come back. So many people like that. So the youth themselves, look at the obedience they are fighting. The youth themselves must fight to take the reign of power. Nobody will offer you anything on a platter of gold. And that is the way life is. The issue of even taking over is not the issue. Getting there, can you perform? So those are the considerations that people should look at, not just criticizing that people are recycled. Because some of those people that are recycled, they've seen their performance, what they have done before in their various states and in the offices that they have been entrusted. And that is why they are bringing them back. I don't know, I'm not saying all of them, but at least some can still be attested to.
President Bola Tinubu has nominated 2 senior advocates of Nigeria in his cabinet, Prince Lateef Fagbemi and Professor Taye Mamman, the former DG of the Nigerian Law School. Reliable sources say that Lateef Fagbemi is likely to be the next Attorney General of the Federation. Do you think that he will make a good AGF? And as AGF, what are those things that you think that he should focus on?
I can say about Mr. Fagbemi that you cannot have a better AGF at this time of Nigerian history. It's not only that he's sound. If you watch him, I watched him because I specifically wanted to watch him at the National Assembly. And eventually, I learned of the caliber of people that escorted him to National Assembly, just to show the kind of pedigree and the belief they have in him that he's going to perform. If you look at the cases he has handled in Nigeria, they are landmark cases. He's known to be one of the best election petitioner lawyer in Nigeria. He's courageous, he's bold, very active. And he's not somebody that can just be pushed around. I know that about him. He may look someone like gentle, going his way, but he stands his ground. So I believe strongly that he's going to perform. There's no doubt about that because he has that antecedent. And with the kind of cases he has handled, there's no fear about him being the AGF and performing in that office. When I watched him at the screening, at the National Assembly, you will see that he talked so much about the judiciary. And we all know that the judiciary, the confidence that Nigerians have in the judiciary, we have to allow that confidence to be built to a higher level. And the reforms there are not far short. No, they are not far in the sense that we want a situation where people have confidence in terms of corruption, in terms of delivering your work on time, the judgments, listening to cases on time. But you see, there's no doubt that judges are overwhelmed with the number of cases they are handling. So they need more hands. Like in Lagos, they are enjoying a bit because there are several reforms that have been made for judges in terms of recording, verbal recording, in terms of judicial clerks who are lawyers, who can do research for the judges, in terms of the environment, the courts itself, and then the allowances. As I think just maybe they're back now. They were on retreat, the judges in Lagos, and then they have adequate medical treatment. So if you have all those things in place, the allowances and the environment, then you see that the issue of corruption, then if you now go and collect money and you now get yourself corrupted, then you can be punished. And then in terms of punishment of those who have heard in the profession, it should be taken strongly. The NJC is the body saddled with responsibility of punishing judges. Maybe if there need to be reforms there, they should say how they do the reforms. And then for lawyers too, because most times people will say it's the senior lawyers that are encouraging judges, they are the one, encouraging them to be corrupted and all that. So in terms of punishment of lawyers, reporting them to the disciplinary committee of the bar and the legal privilege committee, those reforms should be done. And then those punishments, when they are meted out, should be published to the public so that people will have confidence that, yes, people are being punished for hearing in what they are doing within the judiciary.
During his screening session at the Senate, Prince Lateef Fagbemi called for the merger of the EFCC and the ICPC, the separation of the functions of investigation and prosecution, and the creation of a supervising body for all the anti-corruption agencies. Now, what do you make of these calls, especially since these are functions that some people argue should be performed by the Ministry of Justice, and bearing in mind that age-long call for the separation of the Office of the Attorney General from that of the Justice Minister?
Well, you know, those bodies are being supervised by the AGF. And in terms of prosecution, especially, what I've seen is that the major challenge which he pointed out during the screening is in terms of investigation. We are not yet ready on investigation. You see that, especially on the lower level of the police, when they go to magistrate courts and those lower courts, you see somebody just being arrested, spending 2 or 3 days. You see that some will not even spend a day with the police. The next thing, court. And then when you get to court, the case will be dismissed on technicality. But the first thing is, like he rightly pointed out, investigation must be thorough. And that is what kills most of the cases in Nigeria. So as regards ICPC and EFCC, you see that most of the cases that are being handled by the two bodies are intertwined. They will tell you that for ICPC has to do more of civil servants, while the EFCC also handles some of the civil servants, and then the society at large in terms of corruption cases. But I think if it is properly looked into in terms of the merger, then they will look at the percentage of the people that are coming from the civil service and the general public, and if there's the need in order to make sure that there's no duplication, then the merger can take place. But if they see that it is better to separate them, but in terms of investigation and other things to be done to ensure that their jobs are carried out in a way that they will get conviction against those who are tried in court. Most times, I mean, we get so many cases, people have been sent to jail, people have been punished, they've been in prison. There's no doubt about that, but we need to do more to have confidence in Nigeria.
What about the issue of the separation of the Office of the Attorney General from that of the Minister of Justice?
It has been a long-drawn issue, and you discover that the major challenge there is that, you know, is a constitutional provision. And before you can do that, the constitution has to be amended. So until we are ready to do that, people have said this several times, you know, several years back, that for efficiency, for government, because the other one is like a political appointment, which is the minister, while the Attorney General has court duty of the state, you know. And so, but you see that even we talk about, but people are not really ready to come for, because you discover that maybe the occupants of the offices, when it comes to their turn, I don't know. But the most important thing is that the constitution has to be amended before that office can be separated.
The Ecowas heads of state and governments, led by President Bola Tinubu, threatened to use the military option to counter the coup in the Republic of Niger. There have been concerns raised in some quarters as to whether the president can unilaterally commit to do this without recourse to the National Assembly.
Well, you know, he's the president and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but that's not enough as far as I'm concerned. I think we have too many problems in Nigeria for us to dwell into such issues now. I've read so many things about that. My own personal opinion, you know, you have the issue of state sovereignty, because Niger is a country of its own, with its own sovereignty. So if you invade another country, that's what we are condemning about Russia and Ukraine. So for one, you know, the ECOWAS, yes, is a community, but each of the states that constitute ECOWAS have their own independence. So you cannot on your own go and say you want to invade. So I think on both sides, I don't think it is good. The other steps that have been taken, yes, if you have way of the withdrawing aids from Niger, which I believe the president started yesterday by cutting electricity. Those ones are okay, so that at least to show the junta that they cannot just take over and have a free working right. So, but for me, even especially for me, in my own personal opinion, with the problem we have in Nigeria now, I think let's solve our problem first.
Thanks for staying tuned. Ministerial nominee Lateef Fagbemi, who is widely touted to be the incoming Attorney General of the Federation, at his screening spoke about some key reforms the judiciary needs to undertake.
If you have an enabling environment for for investment, you have little problem dealing with unemployment. But there cannot be this will not work unless you have an enabling environment in respect of legal, the legislation. Truth be told, we'll fight corruption, but at the same time, the way it is being fought in Nigeria leaves much to be desired. That is the truth. If I have my way, I will advise the president to unbundle. First of all, bring ICPC and EFCC together, unbundle them. Investigation should not be handled by the same body. There must be a supervisory authority within the same system. If there is investigation, it is another body. Prosecution is another body. It doesn't augur well to ask the same authority to, do investigation, come and do prosecution. That is where we have problems. Then we are also not, patient enough. Investigation takes time, especially in serious corruption cases. Are we prepared to wait?
Other senior legal practitioners also share their views about such key reforms and the role of the Attorney General of the Federation.
We also need to do law reform as a handmaiden of justice delivery. Okay, I just cite one example. The National Assembly was accusing Malami of fiddling with 10-point-something billion that was judgment debt and all that, and how they do this. Yes, it will continue to be so. If you want to deal with that, deal with the law. Section 84 of the Sheriff's and Civil Process Act and 85 down to 86 that says that if you get a judgment and want to enforce it against a government or government authority, the Attorney General must approve. Why? Is the Attorney General the appellate authority over the court that are giving the judgment up to the Supreme Court? And that law was designed to ensure that government can sequence its judgment debt obligation. But it has now become a platform for Attorney Generals to sit down and say, you have a judgment of 5 billion. Let's split it into 2. I will sign it. Otherwise, you won't get any judgment. I'm telling you. So how do you deal with that? And that's the Attorney General that is a supervisory authority over EFCC. That can even get the chairman of an EFCC out and then replace him. So how do you deal with that, Attorney General? Other than look at the law and deal with that law.
The coming Attorney General is to sit with the heads of the courts and properly implement the amendment of the Constitution that allows the fund to go directly to the office of the heads of the courts. Let that be done in practice. Secondly is to then talk about infrastructure. Why should judges be writing in long hands? There are too many judges I know that voluntarily retired due to health reasons. The workload is terrible, especially in cities like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Abuja. So there has to be a focus on infrastructure, by the coming Attorney General. And then, of course, you talk about the system of appointment of judges, make it more transparent, as it were. And then, of course, there has to be an amendment of the Constitution to limit interlocutory appeals. The problem of allowing the Court of Appeal to become the graveyard of litigation is a challenge for us. So I think that that's important for the AG. And of course, I can't hide to say that the AG needs to visit, the Nigerian Bar Association to agree together on how to curb indiscipline within the bar. Because lawyers are also part of the challenges about frivolous appeals, unprofessional conduct, those things also need to be addressed to ensure that we weed the big stick every time when we have occasion for this kind of thing. That probably will be my own understanding of an agenda for the Attorney General that is coming.
And just before we go, let's quickly do a recap of some of the top trending stories from the courtroom.
We begin with the report that the federal government has filed a contempt proceeding against the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress for allegedly embarking on an industrial action contrary to a June 5, 2023 ex parte order by the National Industrial Court. The contempt notice notes that unless the leadership of Labour obey the directions contained in the order of the court, they will be guilty of contempt of court and will be liable to be committed to prison. The NLC and TUC confirmed receipts of the court summons few hours after they embarked on nationwide protests. The two labor organizations directed all their affiliate unions and members across the country, including air, land and sea transport sectors, to shut down operations and be in court during all the periods of the court sittings. The leadership of Labour also accused the Ministry of Justice of allowing itself to be used as a vehicle to truncate the dominance of the tenets of democracy and to silence the voices of the Nigerian workers. They vowed to embark on a nationwide strike if the contempt proceedings were not withdrawn. At the Presidential Election Petitions Court, judgment has been reserved in two separate petitions filed by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, and that of Labour Party, Peter Obi, challenging the return of Senator Bola Tinubu as president. The five-member panel, led by Justice Haruna Sawani, said the dates for judgment in the two petitions would be communicated to parties. The panel made this known shortly after all parties adopted their final written addresses for and against the petitions. Last month, the tribunal had also reserved ruling in the petition by the Allied People's Movement, APM, seeking the disqualification of Tinubu from the February 25 presidential election on account of alleged unlawful nomination of the vice presidential candidate, Senator Kashim Shettima. In Ogun State, Governor Dapo Abiodun has opened his defense in the petition filed against him by the People's Democratic Party candidate Ladi Adebutu before the Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Abeokuta, the state capital. The PDP and its candidates are challenging the return of Governor Dapo Abiodun on grounds of alleged non-compliance with the Electoral Act and alleged corrupt practices during the March 18th governorship election in the state. In the petition before the three-man panel, headed by Justice Hamidu Kunaza, they alleged that elections were disrupted by thugs in over 99 polling units, disenfranchising over 40,000 voters from participating in the March 18 polls. The PDP governorship candidate had closed his case after calling 94 witnesses and tendering over 200,000 documents in evidence. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), being the first respondent, had also opened and closed its defense without calling any witness. Meanwhile, an official of the West African Examination Council (WAEC) from Abeokuta office, Fasasi Sarafa, has tendered a certified true copy of Governor Abiodun's results at the tribunal. He said he was at the tribunal to represent WAEC based on a subpoena issued on the council. In Rivers State, Accord Party has closed its case at the Governorship Election Tribunal after fielding 10 witnesses. Channels Television was one of the witnesses subpoenaed to tender as exhibit video of the declaration of election results. The party is challenging the emergence of Governor Simiralaye Fubara in the elections. At the resumed hearing, the 10th witness was also a subpoenaed witness. A state collation officer told the tribunal that different ballot papers were found in some of the local government areas. When asked under cross-examination if collation agents were prevented from carrying out their electoral duties, he answered in the affirmative. After cross-examination, Accord Party closed its case. The chairman of the tribunal, Justice Cletus Emifoniye, adjourned the case to Monday, August 7, for the defense to open their case. And we round off at the Federal High Court in Lagos, which has granted leave to the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor Godwin Emefiele, to serve on the Director General of the Department of State Service, DSS, Mr. Yusuf Magaji Bichi, the court's ruling admitting him to bail. Justice Nicholas Owebo specifically granted Emefiele permission to publish the bail ruling delivered on July 25 in 3 national newspapers circulating within the court's jurisdiction. The court held that the publication through substituted means would be deemed as good as proper service on the prosecutor. Law Weekly gathered that the move by the defense team is preparatory to a contempt proceedings against the DSS and its DG. In an affidavit filed alongside the ex parte application, which was sworn to by one Samuel Adeogun, the deponent averred that despite the order granting bail to the defendant, the DSS rearrested and whisked him away from the premises of the court. Adeogun also submitted that with the actions exhibited by the secret police, it will be practically impossible to serve the DSS personally, and that it is important to bring the order and the ruling of the courts to their notice and that of the federal government through substituted means.
And that's the program for today. If you missed any part of it, you can find it in past episodes on our YouTube channel. Do also give us feedback via any of our social media platforms. I'm Shola Sheyele. Thank you for watching and see you next week.